My name is Harsha. Now let's move on to today's topic. So I don't expect you to have any prior knowledge on the cybersecurity or hacking. So would like to and I don't want you to be a techie either. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about Metasploit or Nmaps and things like that, but I'm going to talk about in plain English terms of how these guys are going to navigating themselves or how they are moving around the IT space and they are successful in getting into our organizations. Okay, so I want to give you a glimpse of the cybersecurity in the current context, what's happening around, how things are evolving, and what are the kind of techniques that hackers are using these days that we need to take a look. We need to understand, otherwise we will not be in a position to successfully defend them. Okay, so that's the way in which I would be looking at it. So before we get into it, I would like to give you a brief reality check. The way the world has been changing rapidly. 20 years back or 30 years back, when so much of digitization was not there, obviously hacking was not so much of a problem. Okay, and we were all pretty safe, or rather we considered ourselves to be very safe at the time. But with the way things have changed and the way digitization has taken, and everybody is embracing digitization, everything is going in the IT way. We are connecting all the devices, all IoT devices and equipment onto the network. We want to control everything using our mobiles. I want to carry out the complete business through my laptops, etc. And to add it to that, the pandemic which is there currently, we are all sitting and working from homes, and I'm speaking from my home, delivering this webinar, and you are all sitting in the comfort of your home and listening to this. So this sort of brings in whole lot of new dimensions and problems. Okay, so when things have been changing so rapidly, so are the kind of breaches that we keep here reading. So we have been reading so much about the kind of security breaches that have been happening around. Since we are using webinar, the first thing which I thought I should flash is the famous security breach of Zoom, wherein hackers could just get into the Zoom meeting, because at that time Zoom did not have that kind of security inbuilt within its software, and slowly things have changed, and over a period of last 2 to 3 months, so many patches have been deployed by Zoom. It's become much better. Okay, so we have read so much about Zoom security and the kind of breach that has happened. And another one that we keep reading about, the kind of the attacks that are happening now. What we have been reading of late is so much of ransomware attack that's happening, because everybody is on the laptops doing the work. The entire work office itself has shifted to the house, and when a person is sitting and working from his house, now he's got 2 channels. He uses his VPN to tunnel into his office network, and then and that VPN is sort of split, and then people use their home service provider and they get onto the internet. So you are more vulnerable. Okay, and the kind of targeted spear phishing attacks that have been happening, that has been used primarily by people who want to distribute the ransomware, is phenomenal. Okay, the one of the examples which is right there in front of you is the recent Cognizant ransomware attack. So the data is exfiltrated, and then the data is encrypted, and then you are sort of threatened that in case if you don't pay up, your data would go. So Xerox company has also been hit by the Maze ransomware. Okay, so I mean, yes, I was just reading an article just about 2 hours back, and a lot of this data has been put out in the public domain for people to take a look. So Xerox is another standing example, and recent Denver-based company has said, a whole lot of data has been, there has been a massive data breach, and the entire information is out, which has affected a lot of their users. Okay, so if you actually take a look at the way ransomware has changed, earlier ransomware used to be absolutely an automated attack, and the main purpose of that, the ransomware was, they are deployed using a lot of bots, and they start attacking you, and it's all in automated manner. Nothing, it's deployed, and if they're able to get into a system, and then they go ahead, they exploit, land up into your system, and then they encrypt the machine, and a message is thrown. But over a period of time, what has been seen is it's no longer the traditional automated kind of an attack now. The attack has now become more targeted, and it is controlled. It's just like, a red team is sitting and trying to break into a system wherein, it's absolutely manual, it is controlled. Maybe it is semi-automated, but it is absolutely controlled. So then the ways and means and the methodology which has been used by this ransomware of late is it's actually very, very scary. It's no more. So automated attacks are sort of, you can stop them, but when it is manually controlled, it's just like a red team chap who's sitting and trying to get into your machine. It becomes that much more difficult. Okay, so the Maze ransomware particularly, they get into the system. The first thing that they do is exfiltrate the data first, and then they do an encryption, and then after that, in fact, in a couple of other things, what happened is they get into the system, they laterally move, get themselves absolutely deep rooted into as many systems as possible, open up as many channels as possible back to the attacker, so that even if one machine is sort of switched off or turned off, or if it is detected, then they still have a continuous communication with the targeted organization. Okay, so having done that, then the data is exfiltrated. After that, all the information is encrypted and a message is given. So it is, it's a double whammy. Okay, so you pay up, still your data is lying somewhere there, so you never know what's going to happen. Okay, since the kind of attacks which has been on the increase, FBI has also put up a notice, and if you carefully see, FBI has sort of recommended certain things also from their side. Okay, in their notice, they're talking about the networker malware, which is ransomware, which is actually pretty rampant. So they're suggesting that you take a backup, ensure copies are there everywhere, and you also update your antivirus and anti-malware. Okay, secure your networks using and avoid using public Wi-Fi, VPN, two-factor authentication, and computer devices are patched up and up to date. And the last but not the least, please do not pay. So that's the advice from FBI. But friends, let me tell you, the way the ransomware has been moving around, no matter just by antivirus and anti-malware, we will be in a position to stop. We should be actually looking at having a defense in depth, a very holistic approach in trying to protect our organization. We're reading a whole lot of information publications with respect to the kind of attacks that are happening, which I would recommend is trying to read a couple of these important reports that keep coming. Okay, so I would like to just show you a couple of reports. And the first one would be the IBM's data breach report. Okay, so a lot of organizations spend a huge amount of time and effort and money in trying to do a lot of research, and they come out with these reports, and these reports are really good, and they give us a lot of insights, and they sort of also tell us how should we evolve our defensive strategy. So that's one of the main reasons why I read this kind of reports. Just take a look at this IBM's data breach report for 2019 for the attacks that happened in 2019. So the report, which sort of says is, three main causes. 51% is malicious criminal attacks. Okay, 25% is because of system glitches, and 24% is human error. So when you take a look at it, you can definitely start forming your opinion. Okay, what is it that I need to do with respect to reducing the system glitches? Okay, I need to look at installing, maybe I need to look at patching the system. I need to ensure that the systems that I put in place do not have any problems. Okay, that's one line you will start thinking. Another line, when you look at human errors, you will start thinking, okay, maybe human errors can be multifold. People would be clicking unwanted links. People would be coding with errors. Your software development team would be leaving some backdoors, or some vulnerabilities which would be exploited, and all these are human errors. So whole lot of things open up. Okay, so one of my first recommendation is you need to take a look at a couple of these beautiful reports. Okay, and in this particular report talks about what is the kind of cost of the data breach with respect to per record cost, and they start giving in terms of how the cost has changed over a period of time, and how have they arrived at this kind of a costing, the detection and escalation, what is the kind of cost, lost business, okay, because of an attack you do lose business, and post data breach, what is the kind of money that you spend. So in all, the kind of the figures that come up, it's pretty interesting for us to read. Why I'm going through this report, I just want to come back to this particular slide. Okay, see, whilst we keep building up our defensive system, and this report talks about what is the cost per record cost for each of the regions in each country, and he also brings in with another aspect here, especially if you look at it, what are the factors which are cost mitigators and what are the factors which are cost amplifiers. So you need to take a look at this and see with respect to your organization. Okay, and in case if you don't have some things, okay, he definitely, if you look at it, following DevSecOps definitely brings down, it is a cost mitigator. It brings down your cost of per record loss. Okay, whereas if you don't know, if your OT infrastructure is there, or if you use a lot of IoT devices, then your cost amplifies, because then people will be very easily getting into your system, and then you will be losing a lot of records. So it is from this point where I say that we should take a look at most of these breaches. And one of the aspects which has come out in this report is the number of days that it has taken. Okay, what is the life cycle for a data breach? So these are few pretty interesting factors that we need to take a look. Okay, so if you see what is the kind of time it has taken, so from the time a chap has been able to get into your system and till the time you're able to recognize that yes, you have a data breach, look at the kind of time, 200 days on an average, and 206 days it takes for you to even identify that there's been a breach. That's pretty long time. Okay, so you need to look at it, and after you have detected, you take about 73 days to contain the breach. So it's anywhere between 280 days is from the time a chap gets in and you are able to totally remove him from your system. So that time, just imagine what all can happen. Okay, so this is one report. Okay, and another one which is pretty interesting is, I thought I should show you with respect to Mandian's deep dive into cyber reality. Okay, as you keep looking at this report, and in case if you have the time, just Google and download the report and do take a look. Okay, if you look at this kind of reports, it sorts of tells us what are the things that we are actually facing. So I want you to spend some time, go through it. See, it would be very alarming for you to see that hardly we implement so many systems all across to improve the cybersecurity and to generate alerts. But if you would be surprised, there's only 9% of the alerts have been generated for the various attacks. So if you just go through this report, it will tell you as to the kind of challenges that we face. Okay, so right from the time from the reconnaissance till the lateral movement, these are the critical security challenges. These are the phases that we need to look at. Okay, so Mandian sort of says, then we need to go through, we need to have this cycle of access, optimize, rationalize, monitor, and it's a continuous validation process. Yeah, it's very good, but how do I implement it practically? So that's a kind of a question I will be asking myself. Okay, and we spend so much of money implementing or a lot of tools. Are all the tools correctly deployed? Okay, and are the IT team skilled enough to maintain and tune the system and ensure that the alerts are generated, the correct logs are captured, and you are able to detect any anomaly which is there. So that is the problem that we need to look at all times. Okay, so we come to this question, like We have all these reports. We know everything that what's happening. 94% of the malware is delivered by email. So what are we doing about it? Are we educating our people with respect to what they need to do when they get an email? Okay, so much of information is lying around, and all the employees, if you actually see, most of the companies, most of the employees have access to sensitive files. Is that required? So when we have to look at it inside our house or in our company, we need to look at these questions. Where is my data, sensitive data stored? Who all have access? Do I have the access rights given properly? What is the kind of email services that I host? What is the kind of awareness that we're giving to our people with respect to phishing emails, with respect to targeted phishing attacks? So this sort of would actually make us wake up and to this reality which is presently and the problem that we are facing now. Okay, so ultimately cybersecurity is there for us to look at, protect the confidentiality, the integrity and availability of the data. So I don't need to go through most of it, because from the way the interaction that's happening, almost everybody is pretty clear about what's happening around. So we need to improve our cybersecurity and protect ourselves from the various cyber attacks, primarily because it leads to huge amount of economic loss. And once an organization is hit with a cyber attack, its reputation is at stake. Once the reputation is at stake, we see the customers moving out of our kitty. At the same time, you may also be facing the wrath from the regulators' perspective, in case if you're carrying out business which requires certain mandatory protections to be done from the regulator's perspective, and in case if you're not done, then it's doomsday. So we need to ensure that our cybersecurity is well in place. So we need to put various measures. Ultimate aim is we need to protect our entire organization's the IT assets and the sensitive data, ensure that malicious access, misuse, or entry, unauthorized entry is avoided or it's absolutely removed, and we do not have any data loss at all. So before we move ahead, couple of talks about from the attacker's perspective. So we know there are a whole lot of people, and a hacker or attacker, a whole lot of there are different kinds of hackers which are there, and blue hat, red hat, white hat, and gray hat, and whatever, all these color hats which are there. We'll leave all these definitions to the side, okay? But when you take a look at the attacker who is targeting your organization, so I would like to go through the attack lifecycle and then the kill chain. These two sort of, they are pretty similar though, but before an attack is planned against an organization, a detailed reconnaissance would be undertaken, okay? And after that, attempt would be made to enter into your house. And after you are able to gain entry through either which way, either you are able to get in through, maybe the main door is open or some window is available or some small hole is there, you are able to creep in, okay? So you get in, you get the foothold, and then start doing an internal recon, move across, map the entire organization, and then start finding out what you need to do, collect the data, exfiltrate, and then depends on what his intentions are, you would like to do a damage and clear up the system. When I say self-destruct properly, clear up the tracks, so that he would like to keep you guessing as to what did he do. Okay, so that would be one of his main motives. Okay, so very often repeated cyber kill chain phases, which is followed, is here. So reconnaissance, that's time when the attacker would be carrying out very detailed reconnaissance about your organization, the kind of people. It starts with using whole lot of software which are available, like Recon-NG, whether it is Harvester for harvesting emails, and the works like so, and go through the social media, because today we'll end up posting so much of information on social media. So initial recon about the organization, right, may start right with the registration authority, because when you are registering a domain, you would have given a lot of information right there to the registration authority. So the thing starts from there, and then they start collecting names of the people the phone numbers, the addresses which have been given when you registered your domain. Starting from there, start collecting as much information as possible. And once a name is put in, then CAN on the social media would reveal a whole lot of information about the person and the various people who are working in organization, things like in LinkedIn and everywhere. So the entire social media scanning and downloading of your websites, using the common words that are there in your website, all this would be downloaded and everything is used. Common words, etc., and the themes which are used in the website would help me in deciding or trying to guess, make a word list which I will use it for password spraying. So because invariably you will find a lot of people who use, in spite of whatever you may say, please keep the password of this much length and this complexity, people will land up using pretty easy passwords. Okay, and they will use the organization's name or the season, summer, winter, and a whole lot of things. So, or in out of a 10,000 strong organization, even if one person has a weak password, that's good enough. Okay, so few people would be using very, very cryptic password, but unfortunately, when you have a network of systems, even one person is good enough to make the day for the hacker. Okay, after reconnaissance, then when the entire organization is sort of mapped, then you come into the phase of creating your. During this reconnaissance, you would also be using various tools like Nmap and to try and see what are the internet-facing machines, what are the ports which are available, and try and enumerate the ports, try and see what the kind of software, the OS, the version, the works. So with that, you will be in a position to maybe during the scan, you would have come to know that WordPress is used. Fine, WordPress version is good enough. You go to the internet, see what are the kind of vulnerabilities which exist for that. So with all that, you start deciding as to what are the kind of how you want to attack the system. So during the weaponization phase, and then sort of then deliver it. Delivery would be whether it is a targeted email to your organization or phishing email, or olden days the way they used to do is put the malware and drop it in a pen drive, and anything works. Okay, even if one person decides, wow, that's a very good, beautiful pen drive, and he goes and puts it into his machine, that's done. So you have a whole lot of, then they look at how to deliver it. Once it is delivered and the malware has access into your system, and that's it. The first machine, it's able to do it. Thereafter, it starts looking at how to move across the network, start enumerating inside the network, and start moving laterally from one machine to another within your organization. And once that is done, after that, set up a channel back to the attacker, okay, and take in fresh commands, get in fresh payloads, undertake fresh attacks, and then finally do the main objective of whatever that has been intended to, whether exfiltrate the data, encrypt the data, destroy the data, whatever that is required. Okay, so that's a kill chain. So when you are looking at from the attacker's perspective, at the same time you also need to look at it from a defender's perspective. So once you know that you have an incident, you also have there is an incident life cycle as to what you need to do. So preparing for an attack which is going to come in the future, you would be preparing yourself, okay, in terms of getting the right equipment, right defenses, getting your team up to date, preparing your team, training your team. So that is the preparation phase. So the preparation phase would be long. It would go on till such time you have an attack. Okay, so you keep preparing, and then and you also set up systems wherein you're able to, during the preparation phase, you would be thinking in terms of implementing a whole lot of maybe your own SOC, or you implement your SIEM, collect the logs, try and build up use cases and see how you can automate the alerts, and with which you will be able to know that there is some malicious activity which is happening. And after that, once you detect, you would be looking at how to contain it and see what is the kind of spread, define the boundary, and then look at contain it, eradicate it, and then try and recover from the attack. So when you look at that, this activity that you do, you superimpose it in the intrusion kill chain, okay, as they would be going from reconnaissance phase down to, a command and control and exfiltrate. You should be looking at, how do I detect them? Once I detect, how do I deny them getting a foothold in the rest of the machines? If he is able to get into one machine, how do I ensure that, I deny him access to move across to the other machines? Okay. And if he has moved across and if he starts communicating, how do I disrupt that communication, make him get frustrated? So we need to look at, detect, deny, disrupt, degrade, deceive him, and destroy. So parallelly, we should be looking at these things from absolutely from the defensive perspective. Okay, so our defense team should be looking at the kind of what are the techniques and procedures which the attackers use. So with that, what are the tools that they use? So how can I use those tools within my organization to improve my security? Okay, so we need to look at that. So as a defensive team, you would be looking at how to frustrate the attacker and how to make him work harder to get into your system. Once, as you keep making him work more and more, the cost that he has to incur to get into your organization is going to increase. Just like your cost of data breach is there, like we saw in the report, your cost of data breach is there. But if you put some mitigation measures in place, so that sort of, it works in your favor and it sort of works against him. So he has to work more. He cannot move more easily. So he will be looking at deploying more amount of resources, use better payload. Maybe he may use a 0-day. Okay. So of late, we have seen very, very conventional ways in which old attack methods have been used these days to get into the systems. We thought it was pretty old and it's gone, but no. So we need to look at how do you increase his cost. Okay. When we start thinking in that line as to increase the cost for the attacker, he will be sort of persuaded to think of moving away from your organization. Probably he would say, okay, let me go and attack some other organization. Okay, so that should be the aim. Okay, as an organization, we need to take the cybersecurity pretty seriously. Unfortunately, it is not taken very seriously. If you look at the recent Twitter hack, I read somewhere that, one of the CEOs read about it and he said, oh God, I read about this hack. Can it happen to us? The security says yes, but CEO says, what products can we buy to prevent this? Okay. The security CISO says, but sir, it's okay. Let's call Gartner. So, I mean, people start to look at cybersecurity in that angle. Okay, then that's a problem. As a cybersecurity professional and in the organization, your first job would be to look at, try and educate your top management that cybersecurity is a very important business, and you would need to give the right kind of advice to them. Okay, otherwise it will be a problem for us. That should be the main thing. But all CEOs, the way they look at cybersecurity, it's the same way in which they look at every other part of the business, whether, trying to buy an office building or invest into, capital investment into various other infrastructure. Okay, so they would be looking at it from the business perspective. It is your job to look at it. Okay, so when you have to look at the cybersecurity and want to try and build up, conventionally people would say, okay, just like, this guy said, call Gartner. People would be telling, okay, what do we do? Look at, go call somebody who will come and tell you what framework that we need to use. Okay, but actually that is not the way we need to do. Otherwise, what will happen? You will pick up some. There are so many frameworks which are available, whether it is NIST standard, whether it is ISO, you name it. There are so many standards. I try to implement NIST in my organization, and I try to read that 800-page document. That itself took me a whole lot of time. Okay, so most of these practitioners, when they come in, they would be looking at either that guy is used to reading NIST and he would be talking only about NIST. He will not be talking from the way in which you need to improve your cybersecurity defense. Okay, we're talking in terms of standard policies, guidelines, we need to look at, we need to protect, we need to defend against it, all this thing, we need to monitor, we need to put in a lot of controls, and again thereafter carry out an assessment and see where we stand, what's the kind of risk posture that we have. So that would be sort of, it's a pretty mundane thing. Okay, at the same time, a lot of people will say, what is the cybersecurity maturity model that we need to follow? Fine. So people will then start talking in terms of, okay, what's the kind of maturity model that we need to follow? Cybersecurity maturity model, you go Google, you will get a lot of things, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a whole lot of levels, and people will say, okay, I want to achieve level 5 in maturity. That's pretty easier said than done. In order to achieve that, it's a huge amount of work that needs to be put in, and huge amount of money that also has to go in. Okay, so these models and maturity models, etc., are good, okay, from that perspective. But when we need to look at practical way in which you need to implement your cybersecurity, I think we need to look at it in a slightly different manner. Okay, so you have a lot of frameworks, okay, but one of the things that we need to look at is we should have a framework, or we should choose a framework that is pretty easy for us to follow to start with, and using that, then start looking at how that framework can be mapped. So one of the things that I generally look at it is, you should look at the CIS, the top 20 critical controls, which has been given by SANS right in the beginning. Okay, so when you look at it, you can go to the website of CIS, top 20 controls, and you can actually see, you can download the Excel sheet, you can create a login, and you will be able to do a CIS CSAT like the screenshot that I have shown here. Okay, now let me just show you. Okay, this is the website. So when you look at CIS top 20 controls, okay, they have about 20 controls. And then if you look at each control, the first two controls, first one talks about having a inventory of your hardware. Okay, a lot of questions which are asked with respect to, from the hardware inventory perspective, inventory and control of hardware assets. Okay, now that's the first. Second one, inventory and control of software assets. If you do not have a complete list of hardware and software that you have in your organization, what are you going to protect? Okay, so this sort of becomes a stepping stone. Okay, even this has got 20 controls. You may not need all 20. If, in my opinion, if you start from the top, and even if you're able to achieve 7 or 8 controls, and try and implement them in a decent manner in an organization, we are going to make life of a hacker that much more difficult. Okay, so you create a login ID for yourself in the website, and you can fill up this sheet online. Okay, so in case if I'm going to talk about this, okay, and then, okay, do I have active discovery tool? Like, you have deployed hundreds and hundreds of IT assets, whether it is PCs, whether it is servers, or the network components. Do you have an auto discovery tool? Have you defined a policy that anything that all that you're going to put has to be configured? You need to have an auto discovery mechanism. Okay, and then, okay, have you defined a policy? If you defined a policy, have you implemented it? And to what level have you automated? Okay, so if you have an auto discovery kind of a tool which is there, and as and when a tool, PC or a network device is plugged in, automatically information goes to the central server that, yes, this new asset has come in. Okay, so the central agent would be continuously looking out for various devices which are there. No, I don't want to close it. I just want to keep it open for the time being. Okay, so you fill in. So you start looking at all these aspects. When it comes to hardware control, what are the things that you need to do? These are policy defined. Or have you automated? Have you implemented it? Now come to software. What are all? Do you have a list of all the software that have been deployed in your organization? What are the various measures? Have you implemented whitelisting? To what level have you implemented whitelisting? How are you doing it? Okay, blacklisting is no longer valid. It's not very effective. So whitelisting or allow listing is something that is that you need to follow. Like this, you start looking at each and every aspect of this control. Instead of going through 800 pages of framework, and out of which most of it is not applicable, more practical framework that would be useful for us is pick up something like this, which is top 20 controls. Okay. Now the third one is about vulnerability management within your organization. Are you having a scanning utility? Okay. Are you running it? If you're there, if it is there, has it been configured properly? How often do you scan it? What is the policy that you have defined around it? Okay. And what are the kind of patch management that you're doing? So when you try and fill up this kind of thing, it sort of gives you a holistic view about where you are standing today. Okay. This particular thing, you don't have to do it online. You can actually download it. What I was trying to show you, the Excel sheet, is you can download. So you have an organization or a website called, go to Audit Scripts. Audit Script has done this for you with respect to taking in all the top 20 critical controls, okay, breaking it down, giving it in a manner in which you will be able to fill it in. Go through each and every one of them and fill them up. One of the best things that they have done is, like, they have a sheet where all these 20 controls have been mapped with the other frameworks. If you take a look at it, these are the 20 controls which are there. Now, how does this control one, which is talk about hardware and hardware inventory and management, how does it map with NIST 853? How does it map with various other frameworks? You take a look at it. So in case if your organization needs to follow, say, PCI DSS, okay? So here, how does this map to PCI DSS? Which control in PCI DSS gets mapped to this? So this kind of a mapping sort of gives you a fantastic coverage, okay? So take a look at it. Audit Scripts sort of gives you this kind of freedom, and they also have a sheet which is meant only for the executives, where only the top 6 are taken in. You fill that up, it sort of gives a picture for the executives, okay? So the first step would be to try and pick up a framework which is pretty good, which is easy for you to implement. Take that, have it mapped with the rest of the other frameworks so that it gives you a fair idea as to where you stand. Then start looking at it, go through this, whichever framework that you choose, then build up a roadmap for yourself. This kind of analysis gives you a roadmap for you to move ahead, okay? So the first step in any kind of a defense is try and choose a usable framework, okay? Having done that, one thing that you need to look at is you need to look at this MITRE attack framework. When you MITRE has come out with a framework wherein they have done detailed analysis of each and every attack that has happened. What are the kind of tools, methods, techniques that they have used? Okay, when you look at them, that sort of gives you a very good way in which how people are going to operate. Okay, now let me take you to the MITRE's Google. Go on to MITRE web page. These are the 11 verticals in which they sort of talk about how are the hackers getting the initial access. Okay, what are the various methods in which initial access is taken? Okay, drive-by compromise, whether it is exploit a public-facing application, and whether it is phishing. Now they have come out with each of these techniques. Now they have also come out with sub-techniques, like when it is phishing, they have started giving with respect to whether it is spear phishing, whether it is link phishing, etc. Replication through removal media, supply chain compromise, okay, trusted relationship. So these are the methods in which a person can actually gain initial access into your organization. That is one. After that, how does he do his execution? Does he use bash script? That he use PowerShell? That he use a Python script? Okay, and when you look at that, thereafter, what are the methods and techniques that they use for keeping the persistence, and what are the things that they do for privilege escalation? Having got a basic shell, how are they moving up and becoming the administrator, and so on and so forth, as they move from initial access to execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense, evasion, credential access, Okay, discovery, lateral movement, collection, command and control, exfiltration, and finally the impact, what they want to do. So all these 11 techniques and the sub-techniques have been very, very clearly given. So what we need to look at is we should look at a framework, say, take the critical controls, top 20 critical controls, look at the attack matrix, MITRE's attack matrix, see how you can map your control framework with this and see as to when you have implemented something, what is the kind of effect it has got on the MITRE attack framework. For example, okay, if you got 1,000 machines in your organization, you start looking at enabling the firewall on each and every machine. Okay, once the host-based firewall is enabled, which we normally don't. Okay, but it's pretty simple, it's very easy, and you can just push out some basic rules through your group policies, or you can control it either which way you have your AD configured. So you enable firewall, boom, lateral movement is sort of snubbed. When lateral movement is snubbed, moment a attacker gets into your system, he's able to land in, fair enough. He has bypassed your firewall, he has bypassed your IDS, IPS, and your proxies, you name it, whatever you had in the perimeter. Okay, all that is gone. There, he is able to land into a system. That's fine. But after having come in, he is not able to move laterally. So in the final 2 slides, I have brought out those things which you can take a look. So if you start looking at this, look at your critical controls framework, then look at mapping it to MITRE's attack framework, your entire story sort of changes. You will be able to start thinking in a different way. Okay, how do I ensure the passwords are pretty long? When I ensure that each and every person in my organization has implemented a very difficult password, then straight away, lot of my credential access, this entire lot of techniques in this particular vertical and in privilege escalation, sort of they get snubbed right there. Okay, so few of the important things that we need to do will come later. So, but I want you to keep, I spend a lot of time in trying to look at this MITRE's attack framework. It's one of the best things that has ever happened to cybersecurity domain. And it is so beautiful. Everything revolves around this. Okay, you will be able to understand the various command and control techniques and data exfiltration techniques. So you'll start looking at having a user behavioral analysis software set in and look at say endpoint security. I sort of cut in whole lot of these techniques here. So once you are in a position to start putting in enough controls which will sort of start snubbing most of these techniques which are here, you will be in a much better position from security point of view, and the success rate of the hacker reduces drastically. Even if you're able to get about 80%, oh, that's good, because he becomes that much more frustrated. Okay, once he gets frustrated, then he may just leave your organization, move somewhere else. Okay, the first step, we pick up a framework, then we look at MITRE's attack matrix, attack framework. If we are able to map our controls to the matrix, it helps us a lot. Another aspect which I wanted to bring out is, as security profession, we should also look at what are the 25 most dangerous software errors that happen. Okay, why am I bringing this in? Because we buy software, we make software in our organization. Some may not, but we do pick up software. Why do we need software cybersecurity? It's because one of these reasons. So it's a lot of people who sit and code, a lot of applications that we buy, we download and we install. Well, what is the need for Microsoft to keep giving patches? Because there are errors inside, whether it is Microsoft or anybody else. Okay, Adobe Acrobat Reader, whole lot of stuff. Everybody starts sending you patches. That's because there are problems galore. Okay, so SANS comes out with the top 25 most software errors. It will be worthwhile for you to go take a look at the SANS website, which talks about this. When you click any of these things, Okay, it takes you to the common weakness enumeration website, which sort of gives you in detail as to what are the problems. Okay, this particular thing is about memory overflow. Okay, a buffer has been taken in, it is not defined properly, the bounds are not there, so improper restriction of operations within the bounds of the memory. Okay, when you do not define the buffer boundary correctly, and if you try to access anything beyond that, you would be actually sort of stepping on somebody else's shoes, and their problems come in. So it's just an example which I just picked up from here, but the main point is you need to know about this, your programmers need to know about it, so that next time when you are looking at cybersecurity or any application, you will start thinking, is that secure? Okay, this is just the same thing which I showed you there. Okay, so having seen this, okay, when we start looking at our approach, so we need to pick up a very practical framework, maybe the top 20 critical controls, map that with the MITRE's attack framework, cross-reference it with the various other frameworks which are there, which it'll be good for you. And maybe you can use audit scripts for that, and start thinking in terms of a secure and resilient architecture, which will work even if one or two controls fail, even if the antivirus fails, no issues. If the payload passes through antivirus, fine, but he gets into the system, right? But if your resilient architecture is like, if you enable the host-based firewalls everywhere, if you have implemented segmentation, network segmentation, you're going to make life miserable for that malware to move laterally. So that's, and then if you have enabled intelligently the log collection, you will be able to detect him. So that's the way it is. Okay, so use the roadmap and then slowly build on. Okay, so aim is we need to have a solid defense in depth. And one thing that you need to look at is your network is hostile. Earlier, there used to be a theory when everything beyond the perimeter was hostile, and my network, which is the network has been laid by me and I'm managing it and it is secure. No, that kind of argument no longer holds good. You need to treat each and everything as hostile. Once you start approaching that way, it will be good. And second, your team will have to look at how extensively you use simulation or emulation of attack emulation in your network. Try and see how effective the tools that you have deployed, how resilient is your network. So that is something which you need to do. Otherwise, we will not be successful. Okay. These are the kind of measures that I feel we should, apart from looking at hardware inventory and software inventory and all that. Those are the basic stuff which we need to do. But you start looking at applications. What are the applications that I'm going to allow people to run within my organization? Okay, and from where can an application run? Okay, if you look at your PC, if you want to break the back of an attacker, normally when he comes in, he deploys his payload, it goes into a temp directory or some other directory. Never it goes directly into your Windows directory, a program files or program file x64. Okay, it will not go through any of these three directories. That's where most of the programs from Windows sort of they run, they reside, all the exes reside there. So one of the best ways is maybe use app locker. Ensure you put in a policy wherein all applications which are only in these three directories should run. Rest of it cannot execute. So use app locker, or maybe if you have a host-based intrusion detection prevention system, or endpoint detection system, which sort of gives you an application control kind of stuff, enable it. Okay, either which way, what you need to look at is enable, or you allow only a couple of directories from where executables can run. The first and the foremost thing that sort of breaks in the backbone of an attack. It'll be very rare that if he's able to con somebody in the organization to say, okay, I'm save this particular file in your Windows directory and execute it. Okay, that would be absolutely stupid. So application allow listing. So or whitelisting. Blacklisting doesn't work anymore, because whether it is when you are looking at application whitelisting or allow listing or internet allow listing, both these two they sort of go together. Which are the websites you want to allow people to access? Which are the websites you're going to stop people from access? So earlier there used to be, I used to implement a lot of things in the proxy itself, start putting in, okay, we don't want social media to be accessed, then start putting each and every website name there, and the pornography sites. But actually, you see the kind of sites that they spring up every day, it is absolutely impossible for you to keep up with that list. So in the same way, the kind of programs that are running, it's very difficult. So you need to look at what are the programs that you want to allow, which are the websites that you want to allow people to use. So one of them is ask all your employees what websites they want to access. Take the poll, take that list, just allow that first. At least you are able to break most of the other malicious sites across. Okay, coming back to the number 2, password control. You need to look at how effective your password control is. It should be long, it should be more than 15. Ask them to use passphrases with some special characters put in. It's very important. Enable two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication to the code. Okay, and when you are implementing two-factor authentication, ensure that it's implemented across for all the applications. That is the most important thing. If you implement two-factor authentication only for some, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, start looking at egress traffic. Look at network traffic that is going to go out. See how you can monitor that. Put in kind of tools which work for that. Okay, and when it comes to password control, carry out an internal, as I said, you need to do simulation or emulation. Do a password spray inside for your to evaluate the kind of passwords that are there in your organization. Of course, do it after due approval from your bosses. Otherwise, just don't do it yourself. You will land up into problems. Start looking at the traffic which is going out, the kind of traffic that is going to go and have establish access to the command and control centers. Start monitoring that. You will be able to see which are the malicious connections, which are there, which PC is talking to somebody frequently. When there is a beacon, the beacon is going to go out every second, every minute, or every 10 seconds. So the kind of traffic which is going out continuously over a 24-hour period to continuously to a particular location. So that sort of has to wake you up and make you investigate those kind of connections. User entity behavior analysis, UEBA, is another thing that you should look at, because the way each and every end user endpoint behaves is different. Okay, so you can start looking at that. Normally, you can actually, sort of benchmark behavior of a person. I come in, I log into my system, I access 3 websites, 4 websites, or I log into 4 other servers within my organization. I download normally over a period of 24 hours, maybe I download on an average, say 30 MB of information. It goes. The moment my account gets hacked and suddenly there is a download of 1 GB of data, then, and I'm accessing 20 other servers in my organization or 20 other PCs, those are the things which will sort of pop out and has to make you think. You should look at from that angle. And endpoint protection, you should look at monitoring each and every endpoint. Okay, what are the kind of activities that happen once a machine has got infected with a malware or a payload by an attacker? Its behavior is different from a normal behavior. So those are the things that you need to do. Another one, log. Do not log each and everything that goes on. You need to know, because you have logs available on your servers, on your endpoints, on your routers and switches, etc., etc., etc. So you need to be very careful. What are the event log IDs that you are going to enable and you're going to collect? And you should sincerely look at enabling sysmon, implement sysmon, and start taking sysmon logs better than the normal event logs in a Windows machine. Okay, host-based firewall, I've already talked about it. Internet allow listing is fine. We have already spoken about. Look at vulnerability management. You need to look at carrying out emulation, simulation, testing, assessment internally to keep yourself, to ensure that your machine is up and running and the patches are all deployed. You don't have any vulnerabilities which are pretty open. Okay, and if you are running Active Directory, you should look at hardening the Active Directory and test it with various tools like say Bloodhound or something, which sort of tells you, which can just go through the entire AD structure, enumerate and say, okay, from where, what is emanating. Okay, backup and recovery, you need to look at the kind of data backup that is required, and ensure that your backups are taken. One thing, backup is very important here, especially in case if your organization is going to be hit with a ransomware. Having regular backups is very important, and testing the backups is even more important. Okay, so when a ransomware comes in, of late we have seen it enters and it just waits. It waits and waits and waits before it wakes up, because it wants to get into your backups also. So you need to be very careful on that count. Okay, so you need to be very cautious. So you need to keep this in your mind. So we need to have backups. We just hope like hell, even the malware has not gone into the backup. So when you restore from the backup, it comes up alive again. So with this kind of an approach, in my opinion, sort of, builds or it improves the cybersecurity posture many folds. Okay. Thank you so much. Take care and see you guys. Bye.